Hi, this is Donovan Potts, and this is my presentation for cross-cultural communications. In the midst of an ongoing political battle over immigration in the United States, there is no doubt that there is a steadily growing Hispanic population in America. And with that growth in population, churches are being formed and reformed across the country to minister to that population. In this presentation, I will look at some of these issues facing the Hispanic American Church as far as cultural identities of the congregations and the future of the church. I will do this in particular by highlighting one Hispanic church in my own community, one that is small but thriving and growing quickly. First, just for clarification of terminology, the phrase Hispanic and Latino will be used interchangeably, and I will use the same definition Daniel Rodriguez uses in his book mentioned throughout this presentation as all individuals of Latin American ancestry or with ties to the Spanish-speaking world who reside legally or illegally within the United States. Now some statistics to show just how much the Hispanic population has grown in my community, the St. Louis area. According to the U.S. Census, in 2000, Latinos made up just 1.5% of the population of St. Louis County. In 2012, Latinos made up 2.7% of St. Louis County, an increase of 13,000 people, an overall jump of 85%. This is still much lower than the national average, which shows Latinos as 16.9% of the population, but it's still a significant increase for the St. Louis area, an area not traditionally known for its Latino population. But the growth of Hispanic ministries in the St. Louis area has not kept up with the growth of the population. A Google search brings up very little information, much of it outdated. Even the Catholic Church, one traditionally strong among the Latino community, has, by their own website's account, just 4 parishes in St. Louis County with all Spanish services, serving a Latino population of over 27,000. But there are new churches forming to fill the need in St. Louis. La Trinidad, which started in South St. Louis County in 2012, is currently the only Hispanic United Methodist congregation in St. Louis. La Trinidad started in South St. Louis City, which has a growing Hispanic community, then moved further south to be nearer to Hispanic population clusters in Kirkwood, Oakville, and Melville, all in the South St. Louis County area where La Trinidad now resides. It is a small church now, with Pastor Jose Mourinho Chacon Mayorga, who goes by Mourinho, and his wife and partner Elsie doing the bulk of the work in the church. He preaches and plays drums for worship. She plays guitar and does the children's ministry during the service. Still, La Trinidad is a very active and growing group. As of right now, the church meets within the building of an existing church, Concord Trinity United Methodist Church, which has served South St. Louis County for more than 50 years, and in interest of full disclosure, has been my home church for 5 years. Setting up a culturally different church within the walls of an existing church has led to a most interesting blend of the two cultures, one I will address later in this presentation. The start of La Trinidad is part of a larger trend of the United Methodist Church in planning new Hispanic churches, an effort that began nearly 2 decades ago. The program has been slow in starting and has seen its share of both successes and failures. Part of the plan includes creating 50 new Hispanic congregations in the next 4 years. But as part of their hopes for expanding Hispanic ministries, the United Methodist Church recognized the issues of Hispanic church planting and how the dominant system of church planting will not necessarily work. In a recent report, the church admits that dominant culture models of church planting are often alien and thus unhelpful in planting new Hispanic Latino churches. Church planting that is culturally sensitive is as much a need among Hispanic Latino communities as it is for others. In their book, Global Church Planting, Craig Ott and Gene Wilson lay out 5 areas of emphasis for anyone seeking to plant a church, these being biblical teaching, prayer, history, that is, looking to the past to see successes and failures, best practices, and last but never least as far as we are concerned, social sciences. Ott and Wilson go on to say that by studying social sciences, which includes the study of culture and its role in how people express their faith, church planters are able to ensure a ministry successful in addressing people's deepest needs in both biblical and culturally appropriate ways. Church plants need to be culturally sensitive to the people coming in. Ethnocentrism, defined by Rogers and Steinfeld as viewing one culture to be superior over others, has no place in the church planter's agenda. As Rogers and Steinfeld lay out in Chapter 1 of our textbook, doing things in an ethnocentric way is a sure sign of long-term failure. But while La Trinidad is a new and interesting way in reaching an underserved population in the St. Louis area, the leaders quickly learned just how difficult pastoring to the Hispanic community can be on a cultural level. Mourinho and Elsie found themselves in charge of a congregation with people from South America, Central America, and the Caribbean. In our studies, we learned about homophily and heterophily and how they relate to intercultural communication. Rogers defines homophily as the degree in which two communicating cultures are alike. Heterophily is the degree in which they are unalike. What one quickly discovers when studying Hispanic culture is just how heterophilous they actually are. In fact, most people regard the terms Latino and Hispanic as a poor catch-all for what is in fact a very diverse group of people. Many prefer to be known by their nationality or another cultural identity, each of which represents something different. While their language is, for the most part, similar, a Mexican has a different cultural background than a Costa Rican, who has a different cultural background than a Venezuelan. It would be like assuming Americans, British, and Australians are all the same because we all speak English. As Daniel Rodriguez puts it, asking someone de donde es, translated literally as where are you from, is more akin to asking someone who they are as opposed to where they may have lived. Pastor Mourinho found he must adapt to the cultures of his congregants in nearly every aspect, even in some ways he didn't expect.
For Hispanic ministries, it's very difficult and very hard because we have people from different countries. Besides, we speak the same language. We are no, we don't come for the same place. Even Mexican people, they like spicy food, but people from other countries, they don't like the spicy food. So we had to have very, ¿cómo puedo decir? Mucho cuidado.
Be careful.
We had to be careful about even these details in our church.
As can be expected with people coming from such broad national and cultural backgrounds, those coming into La Trinidad and other newly formed Hispanic churches come from varied faiths. A 2007 Pew Hispanic Center study shows that nearly 68% of all Latinos in America identify themselves as Roman Catholic. 20% describe themselves as Protestant, with 3 out of 4 of those being evangelical Protestant. La Trinidad tries to overcome this denominational difference by incorporating many different aspects from the different denominations into their service. The music is more like what one would see in an evangelical church, with guitar and drums replacing the traditional organ and piano. However, Pastor Mourinho often wears a clerical collar, especially on Sundays when communion is served and on special occasions like a wedding. It's an attempt to make sure everyone sees something they are familiar with in the service while still keeping in line with Methodist liturgy and tradition.
We need that the people feel comfortable, and they need to feel that they are part of this church. We try to teach them about that. For God, it's no different if you are Baptist or Catholic or Pentecost. We are the same under the eyes of God.
Indeed, La Trinidad and other Hispanic churches are growing. Rogers and Bomick say that maximally effective communication occurs between individuals who are homophilous on certain variables and heterophilous on other variables relevant to the communication situation. This certainly seems to be the case for La Trinidad as well. As you can see, their similarities include their Christian faith, their common language, and their cultural differences relative to North American or United States culture. And then their differences, of course, are denomination, worship style, as we've addressed, and cultural differences relative to other Hispanic nationalities. In his book, A Future for the Latino Church, Daniel Rodriguez addresses the final aspect we will look at in the challenges faced by the growing Latino church in America. Rodriguez states that one-size-fits-all approaches to Hispanic ministry must be abandoned in favor of approaches that take seriously the socioeconomic and cultural differences that exist among Latinos in the United States, especially between foreign-born and native-born Latinos. This notes the generation gap that is quickly forming in Latino culture. The first generation is what Rodriguez and others define as the foreign-born, that is, represented by those who immigrated to the United States from their countries of origin. Those immigrants' children born in America make up the second generation, one that has steadily grown since the start of the Hispanic immigration boom in the early 1980s. A 2009 Pew Hispanic Center study shows that second-generation children now make up the majority, 52%, of all Latino children in America. Now, La Trinidad works very well with their children, incorporating them into multiple aspects of the worship, as well as having a thriving children's ministry. And, Pastor Mourinho points out, most of the children in the congregation are indeed second-generation and even third-generation kids, those who were born in America and have a firm grasp of both their cultures. In other words, they have acculturated well. As we learned from Rogers and Steinfeld, acculturation is the process by which an individual, or in this case a group, is socialized into a new culture while retaining many elements of the old culture. Of course, Rodriguez and many others explain that there is always a fear in the Hispanic Church of seeing their children go through a total assimilation into American culture, meaning that all signs of their previous Hispanic culture have been removed. While La Trinidad does occasionally translate parts of their service into English, the bulk of the church's activities are done in Spanish, and with the intent of preserving as much Hispanic culture as possible. But the partnership between La Trinidad and Concord Trinity has also shown to be quite beneficial as far as the children's cultural transition is concerned. The two churches pair together many times for children's events, allowing the children to become used to each other and their cultures. Now, one of the terms I kept coming across in my research on this topic was the word mestizo. It is originally from the Spanish colonial days, indicating a person with both Spanish and Native American roots. As far as this term has undergone an evolution these days to mean a different kind of mixture, that of Latino and American roots. As far as which culture they belong to, it very much brings to mind the concept of Robert E. Park's marginal man, one who lives in two different worlds and is a stranger in both. However, Justo Gonzalez shows that this doesn't necessarily mean one's identity is completely lost, and being part of both cultures holds promise for the future. As he phrases it, they are neither Mexican nor American, and both Mexican and American. Therefore, in short, mestizos do not belong, and yet they belong to the future, for what they are now is what the rest of society should be. Pastor Mourinho sees this as well, and he sees it as what should be the future of not just his church, but the whole body of Christ.
When children from Concord Trinity and children from La Trinidad, they join, it's like the same church, because they speak English and they know about the culture, the context, and all about the American. We know that these two churches are in the same temple. We know that it's the same church because we are the Jesus Christ church. But the only difference is that they speak English and we speak Spanish.
As we've learned in this class, it is only by considering other cultures and their ways that we are able to see how our own culture fits in among them. Through this study, I hope to have shown a glimpse into just how varied the Latino culture is, and how one must consider it as a force that will affect future generations of the church in America. We have seen this through a true and authentic blending of cultures among Latinos, between Latinos, and between other cultures. As Virgilio Elizondo said, the future is mestizo. That doesn't just apply to Latinos. Our cultures are all slowly becoming fused together into the beautiful tapestry God intended us to be, all nations and tongues praising Him in one voice. Thank you.